Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 7 of The Catalyst. It's been a while since me and Alex just talked stocks to the camera. We've been doing a lot of interviews with some public company CEOs, some big ones that are coming out soon. So we're going to get back into the stock market. Last week, we had big tech earnings. Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Meta. They released, or Microsoft, Meta and Facebook, same thing. They released their earnings. Google did 70 billion, Facebook did about 28 billion, Amazon 121 billion, Microsoft 60 billion, all in 90 days.
Huge
Absolutely
numbers.
Insane. In the face of what is theoretically a recession right now. So, Alex, what were your kind of raw thoughts as big tech proved to be resilient and probably saved the market from further decline?
Yeah, I think that that's exactly what we should have expected to see, right? So these are all businesses that people are using, whether they're at home or back at work. They're the businesses that are least likely to get cut. I don't know anybody who's like, oh, it's a recession and, I'm being inflated out of my Amazon Prime subscription, right? I'm going to stop watching YouTube because I can't afford it. Nobody is saying these things. So these are the exact kind of companies that should be resilient because their services are free, they're all ad-based, and they all provide a lot of value for your time and for your money. Just think about all the times that you use Google services every single day, whether you're talking about the search engine or maps or things like YouTube and other Google subsidiaries, right? I'm not surprised by these earnings. I am a little bit surprised at how universally amazing they appear to be. Even Microsoft had really great earnings, and that's more, Microsoft and Apple are more hardware and paid software plays, so it was cool to see that. I think the real writing on the wall is for Meta platforms, which I'm sure we'll get into later. What about you? What do you think is going on between big tech, the stock market, and the recession right now?
Yeah, I think big tech putting up the numbers they did proved that, as you said, if technology is most of the economy and technology is staying pretty stable, it's hard to imagine the economy is just going to collapse if tech is able to keep doing what it's doing. Like Google putting up 70 billion in revenue is just insane in 90 days. Same thing with Amazon. I mean, their Prime Day, I think on July 14th or something, was the biggest day they've ever had in Prime history.
Yeah.
I think sales were up 18% over any other day that they've ever had. And then you think about Google, their cloud revenue increased about 37% to about 6.2 billion, and then their ads were 95%, the other 65 billion. And so for them to be able to do that means consumers are still searching, consumers are still clicking on ads and buying products, otherwise advertisers would not be putting their ads. Amazon put up like $30 billion of ad revenue, or $8 billion in the quarter, $30 billion for the year, just because people are buying stuff on Amazon search, and Amazon is a search engine for products. So it's hard to imagine we have some like S&P at 3,200 with numbers like that. Like the earnings just don't match the reality of a recession.
Well, let me ask you this question, right? So everything you just described is correct, but is that all that money is flowing to? So for example, big tech at the top of all the indices, they're doing well. What about the rest of the stocks in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500? A lot of them are posting lower than expected earnings. Do we think that this is exactly and only where money is going, to stocks like Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon? Or do you think that this is a real indicator that the economy is much healthier than we expected?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because then you look at some stocks like Intel and Roku that dropped 25% off less than expected earnings. I think, my idea here is that fund managers that wanted to take more riskier bets are just going to capitulate back to big tech. Because at the end of the day, if Amazon is going to get the ad dollars, if Google is going to get the ad dollars, why am I worried about Roku's ad dollars or Trade Desk? Like I'm just going to go to Google at the end of the day. So I think if the money starts capitulating there, then we get a lot of hoarding of value in those places, and that potentially saves where we're going. But that means some other companies they don't survive, or if they do survive, it's at a much lower stock price.
So do you think that we could see a little bit of a shift away from the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and towards buying actually just these big names, like buying Amazon stock directly, buying Google directly by these fund managers? Or do you think that their weight is going to just increase in the S&P and the NASDAQ? How do you see this playing out sort of at a macro market level?
Yeah, I think their weight would increase. I think they would more fund managers would just buy those stocks, and I think they would just buy QQQ, which is the sort of technology-based index versus the S&P 500.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time to be a technology. Like you would think, why would I buy Airbnb when Google's doing 70 billion in 9? Like what's like, it's a different world of just like the riskier bets on different tech companies. And speaking of Google, Do you think they're kind of the most vertically integrated best business on the planet for what they're able to do? Like out of all tech, that was the most impressive to me. Is there anything
Yeah.
that stood out to you about Google?
No, I completely agree with you. I think Google is flat out probably the best business on the planet. Software and hardware, video, and regular web media. I can't really think of a business that Google isn't in and dominating that's worth it for them to get into and dominate, right? So
Right.
even as far like Google Play, the store is amazing. I stream a lot of my movies directly on Google and YouTube today. So I've cut most of my subscriptions just because I have YouTube Premium and YouTube TV. So I can't imagine a better business than Google right now and into the future, unless the whole fabric of the internet changes to something like the metaverse with augmented and virtual reality. And so Meta Platforms is trying to be the Google of the next internet. We'll see how that works. But Google is the Google of today's internet, right? And that's why I think they're the best business out there. What about you? Best business ever? Like,
Yeah, I agree with you, and so I have nothing else to say about that. 100% agreed, and that brings up Meta. Meta had reported a quarterly declining growth for the first time ever. They've been growing every single quarter since 2012. This is the first time they went down, I think 3%, even though they put up 28 billion in revenue. And there's a couple problems. Number one, the metaverse thing is not working out yet. It might work, but in the short term, investors are pretty scared. And number two, TikTok is still taking their lunch. And TikTok recently added a feature where when you put a comment for something, they're highlighting keywords in the comment and making them hyperlinks so people can click on those and get search results for those words. Additionally, when you're searching things on TikTok, you're also seeing sponsored TikToks pop up as the first two results, which begs the question around where do you think Meta is going to end up, given they've turned Instagram into a pseudo TikTok, and that also is kind of failing.
Yeah, I don't really see Meta continuing to win this social media game. I think there's a lot of interesting nuance in what social media is becoming, whether it's just an avenue to feed the attention economy, whether it should go back to something like, looking at the true social graph and friends being fed content purely from their friends versus being recommended it by people trying to go viral, for example.
Right.
And then I know TikTok is also trying to get into music, right? So they're actually taking on Spotify, not just social media, but also music and sort of that entire industry that comes with it. So I'm excited to see how they do that. I definitely agree with you that Meta Platforms is in trouble from multiple angles. So TikTok in that angle, making Instagram trying to look more like TikTok, but then also the privacy issues that came from Apple changing their terms of service and how they handle user data and what kind of data they do and do not share for ad targeting. So I think Meta is in the prime position to be the one big tech company, the ultra mega cap company, that's going to fall due to the changing times, right? Basically on all fronts. I'm not sure that they're going to fall completely, but between their new internet not working out, like you were saying, the metaverse is a very long-term play, and their current business sort of being under fire from all angles, that's the one I could see fund managers, going back to our earlier point, buying the least of, or the indices starting to de-weight as their market cap lowers relative to things like Google, Amazon, Apple. What about you? What do you think about the current Meta situation?
Google, Amazon, Apple just don't have the problems Facebook. At the end of the day, Facebook is a collection of blogs. Like I scroll through my Facebook feed, I see the New York Times. Like it's just a place where companies go to post content to drive some traffic. And there's nothing more than that. If they didn't buy Instagram and WhatsApp, they might not even be around. 5 years.
That's a great point.
So Google doesn't have that problem because Google is a highway of information and they control the toll booth. Amazon sells products and AWS is a monster. And then Microsoft actually offers B2B enterprise services that Facebook does not offer. So like none of the big tech companies, and Apple is increasing their ad revenue from the App Store because they're like, okay, people want to download apps. Why don't they just buy ads on the place where you download apps versus on Facebook where then they have to go to drive traffic to the App Store? So, and that's why they kind of screwed over Facebook with the privacy stuff. So I think Facebook's in a world of trouble, which leads to our second question, or our second topic for today. There's an app called Locket, which is one of many different apps that have started to raise a lot more money. Locket has raised a $12.5 million Series A funding round. And Locket is essentially an app where you can send a photo to your friend via the app, and the photo doesn't have to be on the app. The photo shows up on your home screen. So it's really cool. It's like if I sent you an app, if I sent you a photo through Locket, you would open up your home screen, you would see me there, and you can swipe literally on your iOS home screen and just see more pictures of your friends. And they've had 1 billion photos shared over the past couple months. Cool. It is really cool. And the reason I believe they've raised about 13 million bucks is because there's this growing wave of companies recognizing that consumers, as much as they've been fed this AI recommendation, everyone trying to go viral content as you've described, there also is this longing for just connecting with friends, which is the entire point of social. So the question that I wanted to pose here is, do you think there can be a mega big tech company that doesn't use algorithmic curation and is just focused on friends like MySpace and Facebook was back in 2005 in order for consumers to connect with each other?
I do. I'm honestly not sure what that revenue model looks like, but I know there's a big hunger for people reclaiming their connection with their friends, especially if they can't see them in person, keeping up to date with friends and family, making new friends, like genuinely new friends. It's like, hey, I remember the days where you would log on to Facebook and Facebook would recommend you somebody because you had 200 friends in common with them, right?
Yep, I remember.
And it's like, whoa, it's like that's pretty cool. And then it wouldn't be taboo to message them and be like, hey, we're probably in at least one class together. We know all the same people. Like, who are you? That's not a crazy idea. And today it's like you would never message somebody who you have 200 friends in common with just because Facebook tells you that. That's almost creepy, right? But so I think that what I'm trying to say is there is this big need for people to use social media as it was originally intended, which is to connect to people that you know in person but maybe can't connect to physically just because of distance. People move away. I'm just not sure what that looks like, because part of the going viral thing is wanting to consume content from people you may not know, and then that's where you can put ads in front of them, right? For example, I make YouTube videos. I want the world to see it. People get matched to that content. They see ads in that content, and it's okay because it's content they're mostly interested in for the content, not because they know me. What does that look like when you're trying to connect with a genuine friend? If you saw ads with that content, you would probably just stop using that platform and like pick up the phone and call them or text them or whatever, right? Because now you're talking about injecting ads into a much more intimate and personal connection. What do you think a revenue model like that would even look like?
I don't. That's why I think a lot of these apps, it's weird to me, because I was talking to a VC once back in June, and he told me flat out there's two ways tech makes money. It's very simple. Either you convince someone to pay you a subscription because you value their service, or you put in ads.
Must be subscriptions, right?
It must be subscription. So like, am I really gonna pay $5-6 a month to send you photos on your home screen? I mean, maybe, but that's not a company that I think is going public at a huge valuation. I mean, it's a subscriptions company. Ads is where the entire world. The reason ads work is because if you're in India or you're Japan, you can get highly targeted Indian or Japanese advertisers, which means that content becomes meaningful. Like, content is able to thrive and find an audience if there's an advertising model to support that content being monetized, which allows the companies to serve the content to more people. So I think that's a problem. And the other problem is everyone wants attention. Like, if everyone is kind of wanting to go viral, I don't know how much people are wanting to just use a product purely to connect. Like, if you're a real estate agent, you want to get more leads, and like, yeah, you want to connect with some of your friends, but if you're 40, you have a couple kids, like, you want to make more money and you need more attention to make more money.
For sure. Yeah, I can't really think of a use case where I'd be willing to pay money to connect to my friends, just because there are already so many great ways to do that for free. Yeah. That's kind of the other thing. This isn't a market where MySpace and Facebook don't exist yet. They're competing in a market where those are great services, Facebook specifically, Snapchat and things like that. And those services are already free, and they're really good, know? So it's really tough to compete with an ad-based service that's like, hey, we're just sticking in ads every once in a while. You don't even see them when you're chatting directly with your friends. You only see them when you're using the viral attention-grabbing part of the app. I'm not really sure I would pay even $1 or $2 a month to connect to my friends in a new way. That said, I could imagine seeing like a subscription bundle where maybe there's like 10 or 20 or 30 of these different kinds of features, putting photos on somebody's home screen being just one of them. And now that collection of features might be worth $2, $3, $4, $5. Snapchat just rolled out Snapchat Plus, and it has several of those features that it's trying to monetize independently of ads. Maybe Locket fits into a bucket like that, where it gets bought out, let's say by Google or Apple, just for argument's sake, and it gets rolled into a massive bundle of features that you can use to connect in wonky ways, right? Facial recognition for custom stickers and all this kind of stuff. And it's just one of many things you can do for $3.99 a month to connect in like novel ways. I could see that being a thing maybe.
One of the things to think about is Duolingo, which is one of the world's biggest technology companies. They went public. I think they have a market cap of like $3 billion. 99% of the revenue comes from ads because they realized to get people to learn languages, you can't charge them because like there's not that much of a financial like. So I think 2% of their audience pays for the ads, or pays for premium, which is like $10 a month. The rest of them see little ads while they're playing games to learn Spanish or French, and that's how they make money. So I don't think we should be anti-ads, but I do think these algorithmic feeds are creating this like hunger for genuine connection. But if that genuine connection is not monetizable, those businesses they don't have a chance to survive.
Yeah, and that begs the question: is there a world where people just make stuff because it's cool, or is today a world where if there's not a monetizable solution, it's not worth being built? You know what I mean? Like that's a cool Locket's a cool feature, independent of the fact that it might not make a lot of money. How do you square away what the world should want just because it's cool, it's fun, it's a product worth trying? You might use it on occasion versus, hey, I can't build this business because it's unfundable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those businesses will be made because entrepreneurs will be entrepreneurs, but they will have to just recognize the potential of or the cap on their market. Like, yeah, you're not going to build a $500 billion business, but maybe you build a $1 billion business, and that's cool enough, and that's
I mean,
dope.
a $1 billion business is great. I would settle for $100 million business, to be honest.
Too. Moving on to our last topic today, Amazon has bought Roomba. I have not thought about Roomba in the past year until I saw this news article. For $1.7 billion. Roomba, for those who don't know, it's this little robot that runs around your carpet. A lot of you watching this probably have it. And they clean up a lot of the stuff that's on your carpet. And it's essentially a robot. And it was one of the first robots that's been reiterated over the past 10 years. And it's a pretty good product. Now, a lot of people have sparked some controversy over Amazon buying this because they already have Echo, they already have Alexa, they already have all these things to know everything about your home. Now, if there's a literal robot that they own, how much more of your privacy are you allowing Amazon to get access to? So that begs the question for this conversation. Alex, do you think consumers really care that much about this little robot running around their house owned by this mega $1 trillion company? Or do you think we don't care that much and it's just going to be more convenient for us?
I think we shouldn't care that much, and it's just going to be more convenient for us. I was just looking up. Roomba has like a wide variety of products. Sorry, iRobot has a wide variety of products, one of which is Roomba. They make robotic mops. They make air purifiers. They make all these other things. So I can imagine Amazon wanting to buy some of these things just because they're great products and they can. But I agree that the Roomba specifically, that's going to be more of a targeted, follow you around, see what you need, Amazon robot essentially in your home instead of in a warehouse. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. But this isn't Amazon's first foray into smart devices, right? They have the Alexa, they have the Echo. I think they also have like some security drones and all sorts of weird things once you get into their smart home solutions. So Amazon's already in our homes, to be honest. They have, those buttons that you can buy to subscribe to a thing, like a button to reorder your laundry detergent instantly, a button to reorder cereal instantly, right? So I think this is another trade-off from, a user gives up privacy and what they gain is convenience. In this case, I'm sure it's maybe a little more privacy because the robot is constantly scanning your home while it cleans it. It's constantly maybe making recommendations based on your specific living situation. But what you get in return is that convenience of this robot taking care of a lot of the daily tasks and the ordering and whatever that you used to have to do. So I think it's net positive for consumers as long as they're willing to make the same trade that they've been making for a decade, which is giving up a little bit of privacy for a lot of convenience. What about you? Yeah. What do you think about the Roomba now being an Amazon product instead of an iRobot product?
I think there's two things here. First, for the people who are saying this is a monopolistic issue and anti-competitive, Google's in everyone's homes, Apple's in everyone's homes. So like Google and Amazon or Apple are probably going to come up with their own sort of versions of these robots eventually. They already have Siri and Google Nest. We actually just installed security in my house, and we have a bunch of these Google Nest products now in combination with ADT. So I mean, it just makes sense for Amazon to have bought Ring for $1 billion and now to also buy Roomba and to compete with those other major tech companies for the safety of the home. The second thing is, if Elon ends up creating the Tesla bot, which I know is a long shot, but if that thing ends up becoming a thing and it's really useful, like we are going to be interacting with robots at such an intimate level to do tasks that we don't want to do to make ourselves more productive, that it's going to be like, how could we live without robots in 10, 20, 30 years? Which means I think this is just a small step to that level. Someone's going to win the robot race. There's probably going to be many companies doing that. And if that's the case, we have to embrace them, because technology is not going to stop, you know?
I agree. I could imagine a world 20 or 30 years from now where the weirdos are the people without robots. It's like, dude, you don't have any robots? What's next? You don't have a cell phone? You know, we're going to be treating these things like they're maybe not family exactly, but a part of the household, right? I think we're going to see robot utilization over the next decade or two ramp way up, especially when we start thinking about use cases that aren't like clean my floors or order stuff for me, but, you know, help me take care of the elderly. Help me walk my dog. Help me do the things that I'm no longer able to do, or do them for somebody who's no longer able to do them. Do my grocery shopping. Maybe I have limited mobility. There's all these like really interesting and really useful, productive use cases for these robots, not just the silly, slightly more convenient, flashy ones that we all probably think of when we think about owning a Tesla bot, right? Like, so I really think that people, once they come to see some of these use cases, they're going to rethink having a robot, especially when their neighbor has one and is doing something very useful. They're going to be like, oh, wait, this robot cleans your pool. Maybe I need that, right?
Right. I think if it unlocks creativity, unlocks mobility, unlocks just the ability to not worry about some of these things, especially some of these high level tasks you mentioned, then it's going to be a no brainer. So Amazon buying a robot that's just cleaning up a little bit of your house, there's going to be a lot more stuff in the future, and I think we have to get ready for that. And we shouldn't be anti-technology, like Amazon's trying to build their empire, and if you don't like it, don't buy on Amazon Prime. But you want your 2-day shipping, so they're going to have to keep innovating, which means they're going to have to keep buying these technology companies.
And that's a really interesting question, right? So Amazon, I would argue, has already successfully built their empire, right? And so what we're talking about, when is enough enough? What is the alternative to Amazon? When somebody shuts off Amazon or says, I'm never going to use Google again, what do they do? Yeah. Like, do you just start using Bing? Do you start shopping locally? What is there a monopoly? Is it a monopoly in the sense that the alternative, when you decide not to use these services, is so much less convenient, so much more expensive, so much more time consuming, that they effectively have a monopoly just because they're the only people to solve problems at scale? In Amazon's case, buying physical goods. In Google's case, being able to effectively search the internet. What do you think about the definition of a monopoly, from the angle of convenience versus just like pure, legally having a monopoly?
I think there's a lot of room to compete. I think there's a lot of space to compete. I mean, you have to have someone who's ambitious enough to say, I want to take on Google. And there are people. I mean, there's DuckDuckGo, there's Neeva Search. I mean, there's so many search companies and they're not this Google scale.
I've heard of some of those. Yep.
Yeah, but they're doing what they have to do, and they're marketing and they're winning, and they have VCs that are supporting them. It's not like the VCs don't want to support these new and upcoming tech companies. So I obviously, when you've hit that much of scale, it's hard to take you down. But it's not about taking you down. It's just about competing with you. And Roomba was never going to beat Amazon. So, Roomba's like a subsection of what Amazon does. So it makes sense to integrate with them. But we haven't had that competitor that wants to take on Amazon, primarily because technology is hard. So, for example, Walmart should be the person. There should be the company that totally digitally transforms and says, we're going to take on Amazon. They haven't chose to do that because probably management and leadership doesn't want to embrace that type of digital culture. And that's okay. But I think that they're not necessarily monopolies in the sense of there's not a lot of room to compete. They are monopolies in the sense of, if we don't use them, there's nothing else to use. So we need other people to create stuff that we could use one day, and hopefully do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I've tried Walmart Plus. I've tried different other services just for even pieces of what Amazon does, right? Like buying things off Best Buy online and all that. Yeah. I haven't been able to recreate the Amazon experience. It's not even close, right? The amount of reviews, the convenience of the 2-day shipping, the amazing return policy. So yeah, I think that's my stance too, is it's, even if it's not technically a monopoly, some of these services are just so convenient and so necessary for everyday life that you're kind of being penalized if you decide not to use them. I have no idea what I would do without Google or YouTube, right? What is the alternate to YouTube?
Right.
I have no idea.
And at the end of the day, if you create a product that consumers love and you get really big, it's because consumers love you. So you're doing something good, even if you're one of the only ones doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, well, that concludes episode 7 of The Catalyst. Thank all of you for listening and watching. The exclusive audio version of this content is on a new startup called Audia. That is going to be in the description if you guys want to just check out the audio version of it. And that's pretty much it for us. We're going to have a new public CEO or CMO. We're having an interview come out with a CEO of a. I'll edit this out. He's the executive chairman, right?
He's the chairman of CleanSpark is tomorrow, and we need to reschedule Weejo. So
okay, I'll just say this. We have some awesome interviews coming out with some CEOs and chairmen of public companies that you guys are definitely going to be interested in. So hope you guys stay and enjoy, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Catalyst.
I'm excited to keep catalyzing the conversation. We'll see you in the next one.
See you then.